chamber was silent except for the sound of breaking glass. Ambassador Minseo watched as the Viridian representative collapsed to the floor, its crystalline body cracking into pieces. The alien had tried to enter the archive for 3 days straight, offering every piece of knowledge its species possessed. Mathematical formulas, genetic codes, the history of their civilization spanning 10,000 years. Nothing worked. The archive, that massive black sphere floating at the center of the galaxy, rejected everything. Minseo felt sick. She had seen this happen 12 times now. 12 different species all turned away. Some left quietly. Others, like the Viridians, pushed too hard and broke under the pressure. The archive never explained why it said no. It just did. She left the observation deck and returned to her small office. On her desk sat a single message from Earth. Humanity had been approved to try the archive. She should have felt excited. Instead, she felt afraid. What if humans failed too? What if they became the 13th rejected species? Earth was still new to the galaxy, still trying to prove itself worthy of respect. Another failure would destroy any chance of that. 3 weeks later, Dr. Taehyun stood in front of a review board on Earth. He did not want to be there. He was a linguist who studied dead languages, not a hero who could unlock ancient mysteries. But the government needed someone, and his name had come up. The general speaking to him was not impressed. "You understand what this means, Doctor? Every major species in the galaxy has tried. All have failed. We need results." Taehyun adjusted his glasses. "I understand. But I should be clear. I am not a miracle worker. My theories about language patterns were rejected by every university on Earth. I do not know why you think I can succeed where others failed." A woman at the end of the table spoke. "Captain Hyejin." Her uniform was covered in medals from the Proxima conflict. "We chose you because you think differently. Everyone else used logic, mathematics, standard first contact protocols. Maybe the archive does not want standard. Maybe it wants strange." Taehyun did not know if that made him feel better or worse. 2 days later, he was on a ship heading toward the galactic core. The ship was called Odyssey Dawn, and it would take 3 months to reach the archive. 3 months trapped in metal halls with 30 other people all watching him, all expecting him to save humanity's reputation. His only friend on the ship was Dr. Ji-won, a quantum physicist who talked too fast and laughed too loud. She found him in the research library on the 2nd week of travel. "You look terrible," Ji-won said, sitting down across from him. "When did you last sleep?" "I have been reading the archive attempt logs," Taehyun said. He gestured at the screens around him, each showing a different species failure. 847 attempts. Every single one rejected. Do you know what I notice? What? Species that are biologically similar fail in similar ways. The Viridians are silicon-based. They tried offering crystal mathematics. Rejected. The Thornbacks are carbon-based with triple helix DNA. They tried offering genetic sequences. Also rejected. It is like the archive is searching for something specific, not just intelligence. Ji-won leaned forward. "So you think it is looking for a particular type of species?" "Maybe. Or maybe it is looking for one species. One exact match. That is crazy. The archive has existed for millions of years. Why would it wait for one species?" Taehyun did not answer. He did not have an answer. He just had a feeling that made his stomach hurt. The ship reached the galactic core 3 months later. Taehyun stood on the observation deck with the rest of the crew and stared. The archive was impossible. A perfect black sphere, 50 kilometers wide, floating in the middle of space. No light touched it. No scan could penetrate it. It simply existed, like a hole cut into reality. Around it, dozens of alien ships waited and watched. Some had been there for years, hoping to learn something from whoever tried next. Captain Hyejin stood beside Taehyun, her arms crossed. "We are getting messages from half the galaxy," she said. "Everyone wants to watch the humans fail. No pressure." A new message arrived. The face on the screen belonged to Counselor Velthar, an ancient insectoid creature that looked like a praying mantis made of bronze metal. Its voice was translated into flat, emotionless Korean. "Human vessel. I offer warning. The archive is patient but not forgiving. 7 species attempted forced entry. Those species no longer exist. The archive erased them completely. No ships, no bodies. No records. It is as if they never existed at all. Approach with respect." The screen went dark. Nobody spoke. Dongyuk, the youngest security officer on the ship, broke the silence. That is supposed to be encouraging? Hyejin turned to Taehyun. You still want to do this? Taehyun looked at the archive. That perfect sphere of darkness. He was terrified. But he was also curious. After a lifetime of studying dead civilizations, he was standing in front of the greatest mystery in the galaxy. How could he say no? I will go alone, he said. If something goes wrong, the ship can escape. Hyejin did not like it, but she agreed. 30 minutes later, Taehyun sat in a small shuttle flying toward the archive. His hands shook on the controls. Every sensor in the shuttle was recording, sending data back to the Odyssey Dawn. If he died, at least Earth would learn something. As the shuttle approached, the archive changed. The surface rippled like water. An opening appeared, glowing with soft white light. Taehyun's heart hammered in his chest. He guided the shuttle through the opening. Inside was a chamber so large the walls disappeared into darkness. The floor was smooth and black. Floating in the center was a sphere of light, about the size of a human head. Taehyun climbed out of the shuttle. His boots made no sound on the floor. He approached the sphere. It pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Then it spoke. The voice was not male or female, young or old. It simply was. Present your cipher. The words were in perfect Korean. Taehyun swallowed hard. He began with what the others had tried. Mathematical constants. Pi the golden ratio. Prime numbers. The sphere did not respond. He tried chemical formulas. The basic elements, the structure of DNA, the proteins that made life possible. Still nothing. He tried linguistic patterns. The evolution of human language, the structure of grammar, the sounds that made up words. The sphere remained silent. Taehyun felt panic rising. He was failing. Just like everyone else. Earth would be humiliated. He would be blamed. Then he remembered what he told Ji-won. The archive was not looking for intelligence. It was looking for a match. One specific species. He pulled up his data tablet and opened the Human Genome Project. The complete sequence of human DNA. 3 billion base pairs. He transmitted it to the sphere. The silence that followed felt like forever. Taehyun waited, barely breathing. Then the sphere pulsed brighter. The voice spoke again, but this time it sounded different. Warmer, almost happy. Welcome home, children of the wanderers. The chamber exploded with light. Symbols appeared on every surface, flowing and changing. Images filled the air. Genetic sequences, star maps. Mathematical formulas beyond anything Taehyun had ever seen. The sphere expanded, surrounding him in warm light. You have returned. The archive recognizes your pattern. You carry the mark of the progenitors. Enter, inheritors. Reclaim what was lost. Taehyun stood frozen. Progenitors. Inheritors? What did that mean? Before he could ask, his communicator exploded with voices. Hyejin, Ji-won, Minseo, everyone on the ship talking at once. And beyond them he could hear other voices. Alien voices. Shocked, confused, angry. The humans had entered the archive. After 847 failures by other species, after millions of years of waiting, the archive had opened its doors. Not for the wise Viridians, not for the ancient Velthar, for humanity, the newest, youngest, least respected species in the galaxy. Taehyun looked at the symbols surrounding him. He had wanted to prove himself. He had wanted to help Earth. But standing there in that impossible chamber, he felt only fear. Because the archive had said, welcome home, and Taehyun had never been here before. So whose home was this really? Taehyun could not move. The light from the sphere wrapped around him like warm water. Information poured into his mind faster than he could understand it. Images of stars being born and dying. Mathematical equations that described how reality worked. The history of a civilization that lived and died 4 million years ago. The sphere's voice spoke again. You carry their pattern. The progenitors seeded their genetic code across 1,000 worlds before the end came. Most seeds died. Some evolved into new forms unrecognizable. But you, children of Earth, you maintained the core pattern. You are their descendants. You are their continuation. Taehyun finally found his voice. That is impossible. Human evolution is documented. We know where we came from. Apes, primates, millions of years of natural selection. Look deeper, the sphere said. New images appeared. Human DNA compared to progenitor DNA. The match was not perfect, but it was there. Certain sequences hidden deep in the human genome that matched exactly. Markers that should not exist from natural evolution. Someone had planted them there long ago and protected them through millions of years of change. The progenitors faced extinction. The sphere continued. A dimensional cascade threatened to unravel space-time itself. They could not stop it, so they chose survival through dispersal. They took their genetic material and scattered it across the galaxy in its most primitive form. Simple cells, single-celled organisms. They hoped that somewhere, somehow, their essence would survive and evolve. This archive was their final gift, a library of everything they knew, locked until their children found their way home. The communicator on Taehyun's belt crackled. "Taehyun, are you alive? What is happening?" It was Jiwon's voice, high and worried. He grabbed the communicator. "I am here, I am fine. But you need to come inside. All of you. You need to see this." 30 minutes later, the entire crew of the Odyssey Dawn stood in the archives chamber. Captain Hyejin stared at the floating symbols with her hand on her weapon, as if she could shoot the truth if she did not like it. Jiwon was already recording everything, her eyes wide with excitement. Minseo looked pale and sick. "This changes everything," Minseo whispered. "If the galaxy learns that humans are descended from the progenitors, they will never trust us again. They will think we are trying to recreate their empire." "Did the progenitors have an empire?" Hyejin asked. She was asking the sphere directly. The sphere dimmed slightly. The progenitors controlled 1,000 star systems at their height. They were the first species to achieve technological singularity. They were also the first to understand the price of such power. This information and more is available in the archive's historical wing. You may access it freely. The chamber shifted. Doorways appeared in the walls, each glowing with a different color. Blue for technology, green for biology, red for history, yellow for mathematics, and one door at the very back that was black and gave off no light at all. "What is that one?" Taehyun pointed at the black door. "Knowledge you are not ready to access," the sphere said. "Some information is too dangerous for those who have not proven their wisdom. That door will open when you are ready. Not before." The crew split up to explore. Jiwon went to the technology wing and found designs for faster-than-light drives that made current engines look like toys. Dr. Soman, the ship's medical officer, found the biological wing and discovered cures for every disease humanity still struggled with. Engineer Kyung-ho found manufacturing techniques that could revolutionize industry. And researcher Yuna went to the historical wing and began learning the story of the progenitors. What she found made her wish she had not looked. That night, while the crew slept in temporary quarters inside the archive, Yuna called a meeting. Her face was gray with stress. She displayed a hologram for everyone to see. It showed the progenitors at the height of their power. They did not look completely human, but the resemblance was there. 2 arms, 2 legs, similar facial structure. The progenitors were not peaceful explorers, Yuna said quietly. They conquered. They found primitive species and enslaved them. They conducted genetic experiments on entire populations. When species resisted, the progenitors destroyed them completely. They wiped out at least 30 civilizations that we know of. The room went silent. Dong-hyuk spoke first. "Are you saying our ancestors were monsters?" "I am saying they were complicated," Yuna replied. "They did terrible things, but they also achieved incredible things. And at the end, when they faced extinction, they chose to sacrifice everything to preserve life, even if that life would eventually forget them." "What caused the dimensional cascade?" Taehyun asked. The archive said they faced it. But did they cause it? Yuna nodded slowly. Yes, they were experimenting with dimensional technology. They wanted to access parallel universes. The experiment went wrong. It created a cascade effect that began tearing apart spacetime. They tried to stop it but could not. The cascade consumed their entire civilization before finally burning itself out. That is why the archive was built here at the galactic core. This was the last safe place before the cascade hit. Minseo put her head in her hands. So humanity did not just inherit knowledge. We inherited guilt. We are the descendants of a species that almost destroyed the galaxy. Hyejin stood up. That was 4 million years ago. We are not them. We did not make their choices. We should not carry their shame. But we carry their DNA, Ji-won said softly. What if we are destined to repeat their mistakes? What if violence and ambition are coded into us at the genetic level? Nobody had an answer for that. They sat in uncomfortable silence until an alarm sounded. Someone was trying to contact the ship. Hijin opened the channel. The face that appeared on the screen was alien. It looked like a fusion of lizard and bird, covered in dark red scales. High Envoy Kramesh of the Dralathi Empire. Humans, Kramesh said. His voice was harsh and angry. You will share the archive's knowledge with the Galactic Assembly. Immediately. It is not yours to hoard. Hyejin kept her face neutral. The archive opened for humanity. It is our responsibility to decide how its knowledge is used. Unacceptable. For millions of years, that knowledge has waited. No single species has the right to claim it, especially not a species as young and violent as yours. We are not violent, Hyejin said, but her hand moved to her weapon. Kramesh laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You have been part of galactic society for 50 years. In that time, you fought 3 wars with your own colonies. You nearly destroyed your own planet with nuclear weapons before achieving spaceflight. Do not pretend to be peaceful. We know what you are. What do you want? Minseo stepped forward, trying to defuse the situation. Give us access to the archive's biological databases. My people are dying of a plague. We have searched for a cure for decades. If the archive contains the knowledge we need, you have no right to keep it from us. For the first time, Kramesh's anger seemed to crack. Underneath was desperation, fear. Taehyun understood then. This was not about power or politics. The Dralathi were dying, and they would do anything to save themselves. Give us time, Taehyun said. Let us search the biological wing. If we find information about your plague, we will share it. I promise. Kramesh stared at him for a long moment. You have 24 hours. After that, if you have not shared the information, we will take it by force. 40 Dralathi warships are already en route to this location. They will arrive tomorrow. Do not test our patience, the transmission ended. The crew looked at each other. They had one day to find a cure for an alien plague or face a war they could not win. The Odyssey Dawn was a research vessel, not a battleship. Against 40 warships, they would not last 5 minutes. Taehyun turned to Soman. Can you do it? Can you find a cure in 24 hours? Soman looked terrified. I can try, but I'm not a miracle worker. The archive's databases are enormous. Finding the right information could take weeks. Then we better start now, Hyejin said. She looked at Taehyun. You opened this box. The question is, will what is inside save us or destroy us? Taehyun did not have an answer. He looked back at the black door, the one the archive said they were not ready for. He wondered what knowledge it contained. What secrets were so dangerous that even the progenitors feared them? And he wondered if humanity would be wise enough not to open it, or foolish enough to try. The Dralathi fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 40 warships, each one 3 times the size of the Odyssey Dawn. They formed a sphere around the archive, blocking any escape route. Captain Hyejin watched them on the main screen and felt her stomach sink. She had fought in wars before. She knew what those ships could do. Shield status? She asked Kyung-ho. The engineer looked up from his console. We upgraded them using archive technology. They are stronger than before, but against 40 ships? We might last 10 minutes instead of 5, Hyejin nodded. 10 minutes was better than nothing. She opened a channel to the archive where most of the crew was still working. Salman, please tell me you found something. Salman's voice came back exhausted and stressed. I am close. The archive's medical database is massive. But I think I found a reference to something similar to the Dralathi plague. Give me 2 more hours. You have 1, Hyejin said. She cut the channel and looked at Dong-yuk. The young security officer was checking weapons lockers, preparing for the worst. How many of us can fight? Maybe 10, Dong-yuk said. The rest are scientists. They never trained for combat. 10 fighters against hundreds of Dralathi soldiers. Hyejin had faced bad odds before, but never this bad. She walked to the window and stared at the enemy fleet. Each ship bristled with weapons. She wondered how many of the Dralathi wanted to be here, how many were just desperate parents trying to save their children from a plague. The communication screen lit up. High Envoy Kramesh appeared, his red scales gleaming. Your time is up, humans. Have you found the cure? We need more time, Hyejin said. Our medical officer is close to a breakthrough. No more time. You have had 24 hours. Either share what you have found, or we will board your vessel and take it. If you attack us, the Galactic Assembly will declare war on your empire. Kramesh laughed bitterly. The Assembly is weeks away. My people will be dead by then if we do not act now. I am sorry, Captain, but we are out of choices. The screen went dark. 5 seconds later, the first weapons fired. Energy beams struck the Odyssey Dawn's shields. The ship shook. Alarm screamed. Hyejin grabbed her chair to stay standing. "Return fire," she shouted. "With what?" Kyung-ho yelled back. "We are a research ship. We have 2 defensive guns and they are meant for asteroids, not warships." Another blast hit them. The lights flickered. A console exploded in sparks. Dong-yuk ran to put out the fire. More alarms sounded. Hull breach in Section 7, life support failing in Section 9. The ship was falling apart. Inside the archive, Taehyun felt the vibrations of the attack. He ran to the main chamber where the sphere waited. "The archive has defenses," he said. "I saw them in the technical wing. Weapons that could destroy those ships in seconds. Why are you not using them?" The sphere pulsed softly. "The archive's weapons are linked to the genetic signature of the progenitors. You carry that signature. You have the authority to activate them, but you must choose to do so." Taehyun felt ice in his stomach. The archive wanted him to decide. To take responsibility, to become what the progenitors had been, a species with the power to destroy anyone who opposed them. Ji-won appeared beside him, breathing hard from running. "Taehyun, the ship cannot take much more. People are getting hurt. You have to do something. If I activate those weapons, the archive will kill hundreds, maybe thousands of Drelathi," Taehyun said. "They are desperate. They are trying to save their families. How can I murder them for that? And if you do nothing, we all die." Ji-won grabbed his shoulders. "I know you want to be good, but sometimes there are no good choices. Only necessary ones." Taehyun looked at the sphere. He thought about the progenitors. They had made the necessary choices. They had conquered and killed and justified it all as survival, and in the end, they destroyed themselves anyway. Was that humanity's future? To gain power and lose themselves in the process? Another explosion shook the archive. Taehyun heard screaming through his communicator. The medical bay had been hit. People were injured, maybe dying, and he was standing here frozen by philosophy while real people suffered. "I cannot do it," he whispered. "I will not kill them." Ji-won stared at him. Disappointment and fear mixed on her face. "Then we are dead." She turned and ran back toward the ship. Taehyun fell to his knees. Was he being noble or just a coward? He did not know anymore. He prayed that Somin would find the cure in time, that somehow this would end without more death. But he knew prayers rarely got answered the way you wanted. On the ship, another blast tore through the hull. This one hit the medical bay directly. The room exploded in fire and decompression. Somin was thrown against the wall. She tried to grab something, anything, but the force was too strong. She was pulled toward the breach, toward the cold vacuum of space. Dong-yuk saw it happen. He ran toward her, but the emergency doors slammed shut automatically. He watched through the small window as Somin floated into space. Her face was peaceful. She did not suffer. That was the only mercy. He turned away from the window and saw Hyejin standing there. Her face was made of stone, but her eyes were filled with rage. "Get me a channel to the archive," she said quietly. "Get me Taehyun, now." When Taehyun's face appeared on the screen, Hyejin did not yell. She did not have to. Her voice was cold as death. "Somin is dead. She died because you would not fight. I hope your principles keep you warm at night." The screen went dark. Taehyun felt like he had been shot. Somin was dead, a woman who dedicated her life to healing, killed because he refused to use weapons. He had wanted to avoid killing. Instead, he caused death through inaction, which was worse. He stood up, ready to activate the archive's weapons, ready to become the monster he feared. But before he could, alarms stopped on the ship. The Drelathi stopped firing. Confused, Taehyun opened a channel to the bridge. "What happened?" Kyung-ho answered, his voice shaking. "Yuna found it. Right before the medical bay was hit, Somin sent her research to Yuna. Yuna finished the work. We have the cure for the Drelathi plague. It is a retroviral treatment. The archive had the complete formula stored in the biological wing." Taehyun felt relief and grief mixing together. They had the cure. Somin's last act had saved them all. He opened a channel to the Drelathi fleet and transmitted the cure's formula. All of it, no conditions, no demands. Just the knowledge freely given. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Kramesh appeared on the screen. He looked older now, tired. "Why? We attacked you. We killed your people. Why give us this?" "Because you are dying," Taehyun said simply. "And we can help. That should be enough." Kramesh bowed his head. It was a gesture of deep respect in Dralathi culture. I was wrong about humans. You are not like the progenitors. They would have used this as leverage. Made us beg. But you just gave it away. He looked up. My fleet is withdrawing. We will not forget this gift. The Dralathi ships turned and jumped to hyperspace one by one. Soon the archive was alone again. Taehyun sat down heavily. They had won. The galaxy would respect humanity now. The Galactic Assembly would accept their right to the archive. Everything they hoped for had come true. So why did he feel so empty? Soman was still dead. The ship was still damaged. And Taehyun knew the truth. The archive had tested him. It wanted to see if he would use its weapons. And he had hesitated so long that someone died. He had failed. Not as a leader, as a person. That night he sat alone in the archive's main chamber. The sphere floated nearby, silent. He finally spoke to it. You knew this would happen. You knew people would die while I tried to make the right choice. Every choice has a cost, the sphere said. The progenitors learned that too late. Perhaps you will learn it in time to matter. What if I am not strong enough? What if I cannot bear the weight of this inheritance? The sphere pulsed gently. Then you will discover what you truly are, and humanity will discover it with you. 3 months passed. The Odyssey Dawn returned to Earth for repairs, but Taehyun stayed at the archive. The Galactic Assembly created the Progenitor Heritage Trust, an organization to share archive knowledge with all species. Scientists arrived from a dozen worlds. Taehyun became the chief curator, a title he never wanted. Every day was meetings and paperwork. Which species got access to which technology? How could they share medical advances without creating new weapons? Who decided what was safe and what was dangerous? The questions never ended. Taehyun felt buried under responsibility. He also felt different, colder. His thoughts moved faster now. He could calculate complex equations in his head instantly. He needed less sleep. He could speak 3 alien languages he had never studied. At first he thought it was stress, but Jiwon noticed it too. You are changing, she said one evening. They were alone in his quarters, eating a meal neither of them tasted. Your eyes have flecks of gold in them that were not there before. Taehyun touched his face. I feel different, sharper, but also more distant. Like emotions are happening far away and I am just watching them. Jiwon pulled out a medical scanner. Let me run a test. She scanned him carefully, then stared at the results. Her face went pale. Your DNA is changing. Certain sequences are rewriting themselves. The changes match the progenitor genetic pattern. What does that mean? It means the archive is not just giving you knowledge. It is transforming you, physically, genetically. You are becoming more like them. Taehyun felt ice spread through his chest. How is that possible? I have not done anything different. I just walk through the archive, read its records. The archive itself must be doing it. Some kind of field effect. Everyone who spends time here is being changed. Slowly, subtly, but changed. Jiwon looked terrified. Taehyun, if this continues, you will not be human anymore. That night, Taehyun could not sleep. He went to the parts of the archive he had been avoiding. The locked areas. The black door. With his curator access, he could enter now. The archive did not stop him. Maybe it wanted him to see. Inside the black door was a chamber of horrors. Records of the progenitors' crimes. Species enslaved and bred like animals. Genetic experiments that killed billions. Wars fought not for survival but for pride. The progenitors had not been explorers. They had been conquerors. And they enjoyed it. Taehyun found records of the dimensional cascade. The disaster that ended their civilization. It was not an accident. It was a weapon. The progenitors built it to destroy a rival species called the architects. The weapon worked. The architects were erased from existence. But the cascade could not be contained. It turned back on its creators and consumed them too. In their final days, the progenitors faced the truth of what they had become. Monsters with the power of gods. They could have accepted extinction as justice. Instead, they chose survival. They scattered their genetic code across the galaxy, hoping it would eventually evolve into something new, something that could inherit their knowledge without their cruelty. But they added a failsafe. A protocol buried deep in the archive's code. Taehyun found it hidden in the main database. The inheritance protocol. If humanity accepted their full heritage, If they activated all archive systems, the protocol would trigger. It would accelerate human evolution, pushing them toward the progenitor form. Within a generation, humans would become what their ancestors had been, powerful, immortal, and ultimately, doomed to repeat the same mistakes. Taehyun ran from the chamber. He found Jiwon and Dongyuk and told them everything. They sat in stunned silence. Finally, Dongyuk spoke. Can we stop it? Maybe. The protocol has a failsafe of its own. It requires unanimous agreement from human representatives to fully activate. As long as someone refuses, it cannot complete. But it has already started. Everyone who enters the archive is being changed. Slowly transformed. Then we close the archive, Jiwon said. We seal it and walk away. Better to lose the knowledge than lose ourselves. The Galactic Assembly will never allow it, Dongyuk said. They need the archive's technology, and Earth's government will not agree either. There are people who want this transformation, who see it as humanity's destiny. He was right. When Minseo arrived a week later with news from Earth, it confirmed Taehyun's worst fears. A political movement had formed, the progenitor ascendancy. They knew about the inheritance protocol. They wanted to accelerate it. They believed humanity's future was to reclaim the galaxy as the progenitor's heirs. They have support, Minseo said quietly. Military officers, scientists, politicians, maybe 20% of Earth's population. They are offering voluntary exposure to the archive. People enter, spend time in deep areas and leave transformed. Stronger, smarter, different. They are making themselves into weapons, Taehyun said. The progenitors 2.0, do they understand what they are becoming? They think they understand. They believe they can take the power without the corruption, that they can be better than the originals. Minseo looked exhausted. I tried to reason with them, but they see me as an obstacle, as someone too afraid to embrace humanity's true potential. Taehyun thought about his own changes, the coldness growing inside him, the way emotions felt distant now, the ease with which he could imagine violence. Was that the power talking, or was it the corruption? Could you separate the two? We need to tell people the truth, Jiwon said. Show them what the progenitors really were. Show them the crimes. Maybe that will change minds. It will not matter, Taehyun said softly. People who want power will always find ways to justify it. We can show them 1,000 atrocities and they will say they will be different. Better. They always believe they are the exception. They sat in silence. Outside the archive, ships moved through space. Inside, the sphere pulsed gently, waiting. It had all the time in the universe. Humans did not. The next morning, alarms sounded. Ships were approaching. But not alien ships. Human ships. 10 warships bearing the symbol of the progenitor ascendancy. They had come to claim the archive. To force the completion of the inheritance protocol. Taehyun watched them arrive on the main screen. He recognized the lead ship. It belonged to Admiral Sung-ho, a war hero from the Proxima conflict. Sung-ho appeared on the communication screen. He looked different now. His eyes glowed faintly. His skin had a crystalline quality. He had transformed further than anyone else. Taehyun, Sung-ho said. His voice was deeper, more resonant. You have done well as curator, but you are holding humanity back. It is time to complete what the progenitors started. Time to become what we were always meant to be. We were meant to be human, Taehyun replied. Not copies of a dead civilization. Humans are weak. We age and die. We struggle and suffer. The progenitors transcended all that. They achieved immortality, perfect knowledge, unlimited power. That is our birthright. They also destroyed themselves. That power you want so badly killed everyone who possessed it. Sung-ho smiled. It was not a kind expression. We will not repeat their mistakes. We will be better, wiser. We will take the galaxy and remake it into something perfect. You already sound like them, Taehyun said quietly. The smile faded. I'm giving you a choice. Join us willingly or be removed. The archive will complete its purpose with or without your cooperation. The screen went dark. Taehyun looked at his friends. Jiwon's face was determined. Dongyuk looked scared but ready. Minseo was already calculating odds. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but they had something the Ascendancy did not. They still knew who they were. Contact Captain Hyejin, Taehyun said. Tell her we need help, and tell her to bring everyone who still wants to stay human. Outside, Sung-Ho's fleet began moving into position. Humanity's first civil war in space was about to begin, and the prize was nothing less than the human soul itself. Would they remain who they were, flawed and mortal, or would they transform into something greater and lose themselves in the process? The archive waited silently. It had seen this choice before. It would see it again. The only question was what answer humanity would give. Captain Heejin arrived with 5 ships. Not an army, but enough. The crews were volunteers, scientists, engineers, soldiers. All of them had refused the transformation. All of them wanted to stay human, whatever that meant. They positioned themselves between the archive and Sung-Ho's fleet. "This is madness," Heejin said over the communication channel. "We are the same species. We should not be pointing weapons at each other." Sung-Ho's face appeared on the screen. The glow in his eyes was brighter now. "We are not the same species anymore, Captain. We are what humans should have been all along, strong, perfect, immortal. You are clinging to weakness out of fear." "I am not afraid of strength," Heejin said. "I am afraid of losing what makes us who we are. You talk about perfection, but I look at you and I do not see a person anymore. I see a copy of something dead. Then you are blind." Sung-Ho raised his hand. "Boarding teams launch. Take the archive. Remove anyone who resists." Small ships detached from the Ascendancy fleet. They shot toward the archive, too fast and too many to stop. Heejin's ships tried to intercept, but it was hopeless. Within minutes, the boarding teams breached the archive's outer hull. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Inside the archive, Dong-hyuk grabbed his weapon. "Everyone who can fight with me. We hold them at the main corridor." He led a group of 10 toward the breach point. They set up a defensive position behind storage containers and waited. The Ascendancy soldiers came through fast and hard. They moved like predators, enhanced by their transformation. Stronger, faster, but also predictable. Dong-hyuk noticed it immediately. They fought using tactics from the archive's military database. Ancient progenitor strategies. They were powerful, but they had lost their creativity. "Focus fire on the left one," Dong-hyuk shouted. His team concentrated their weapons. The enhanced soldier tried to dodge using a pattern Dong-hyuk recognized from the historical records. He anticipated it and fired where the soldier would be. Direct hit. The soldier went down. "They are fighting like machines," one of his team said. "They are not adapting." Dong-hyuk grinned fiercely. "Then we stay human and unpredictable. Move." They fell back to a secondary position, using tactics the progenitors never knew because humans invented them last week. In space, the battle was not going as well. Heejin's ships were outmatched. The Ascendancy vessels had been upgraded with archive technology. Better weapons, stronger shields, faster engines. One of Heejin's ships exploded. Then another. She watched good people die and felt rage building. "All ships fall back to the archive's defensive perimeter," she ordered. "If we are going to die, we die protecting something worth saving." Deep inside the archive, Taehyun stood in the main chamber. The sphere floated before him, pulsing with light. Sung-Ho had breached the inner corridors. He would be here soon. Taehyun had to make a choice. He could activate the archive's weapons, end this in seconds, or he could find another way. Ji-won ran into the chamber, her clothes torn from fighting. "Taehyun!" "I found something in the archive's code. The inheritance protocol. It has a failsafe." "What kind of failsafe?" "A rejection option. The progenitors built it in at the end. A test. If a species recognizes the protocol for what it really is, if they understand it is parasitic resurrection, they can reject it. But the rejection must be unanimous. Every human with access to the archive must agree." Taehyun felt hope for the first time in days. The progenitors gave their descendants a choice. The choice they never had themselves. The choice to say no to power. "But Sung-Ho will never agree," Ji-won said. "He wants the transformation. He believes in it completely." "Then I will make him understand." Taehyun turned to the sphere. "Open a channel to all ships, everyone. I need everyone to hear this." The sphere complied. Taehyun's voice echoed through every ship, every corridor, every communicator. "This is Dr. Taehyun, Chief Curator of the Archive. I am speaking to all humans, Ascendancy and Loyalist, transformed and unchanged. We are at a moment of choice. The Archive has offered us incredible power, the ability to become what the progenitors were, immortal, perfect, unstoppable. But I have seen what the progenitors really were. I have read their history, their crimes. Their regrets. They were not heroes. They were conquerors who destroyed themselves because they could not stop conquering. The inheritance protocol is not a gift. It is a trap. It transforms us into copies of them. We gain their power but lose ourselves in the process. We become their resurrection. And we will repeat their mistakes because those mistakes are coded into the very power we seek. But the progenitors, at the very end, did something wise. They gave us a choice. They built a failsafe that lets us reject the protocol, reject the transformation, choose to remain imperfect mortal human. The failsafe requires unanimous agreement from all humans with archive access. That includes the Ascendancy. Sungho appeared in the doorway, his enhanced soldiers behind him. He looked powerful and terrible. You are a fool, Taehyun. You are asking us to give up immortality, to return to weakness and death. Why would anyone choose that? Taehyun met his eyes. Because being human means choosing your own path. The progenitors never had that choice. They followed their programming, their instincts, their hunger for power. It destroyed them. We can be different. We can choose difficulty over ease, mortality over immortality, ourselves over perfection. That is weakness talking. No, it is wisdom. The progenitors were powerful enough to conquer the galaxy, but they were not wise enough to stop. That is why they died. That is why they built this failsafe. They knew at the end that power without wisdom is just a faster path to destruction. Minseo stepped forward from the crowd of defenders. Admiral Sungho, I knew your daughter. Before she died in the plague that hit the outer colonies. I was there. She was 7 years old. Do you remember what she said to you before the end? Sungho's face twitched, a crack in the perfect mask. She said she loved me. She said she loved you because you were brave enough to be afraid. Because you felt things deeply. Because you were human. Minseo's voice was gentle. If she could see you now, glowing and perfect and cold, would she recognize you? Would she still love what you have become? For the first time, Sungho looked uncertain. His hand went to his chest, where his daughter's picture used to hang before the transformation made such sentimentality seem unnecessary. I did this for her. To make sure no one else lost their children. To make humanity strong enough to protect everyone. You did it because you were in pain, Taehyun said softly. And pain is human. But so is healing. So is choosing to live with loss instead of running from it into transformation. Your daughter loved your humanity. Honor that. Choose to stay human. Sungho stood silent. Behind him, his soldiers waited. In space, the fleets held their fire. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Finally, Sungho spoke. His voice cracked. What happens if I agree? If we reject the protocol? The transformation's reverse, Jiwon said. Slowly. You will return to who you were. Human. Mortal. But yourself. And we lose access to the archive's greatest knowledge. The weapons. The immortality treatments. Everything that makes us special. We lose power, Taehyun agreed. But we keep ourselves. That is the trade. You have to decide which matters more. Sungho looked at his hands. They glowed faintly with progenitor energy. So much power, so much potential, and so empty. He thought of his daughter's face. Her laugh, the way she used to cry during sad movies. Could she have loved him like this? Cold and perfect and no longer capable of crying himself? I vote to reject the protocol, he said quietly. I want to go home. To be myself again. Even if it hurts. One by one, the others agreed. Ascendancy soldiers and loyalist defenders, scientists and soldiers, every human in the archive cast their vote. To reject power, to choose humanity over perfection, to forge their own path instead of following someone else's. The sphere pulsed brightly. Choice recorded? Inheritance protocol deactivated. Genetic modifications will reverse over the coming months. The archive's deepest vaults are now sealed permanently. You have chosen your own path. You are not the progenitors reborn. You are something they could never be. Yourselves. The chamber filled with light. Then it faded. When it cleared, Taehyun felt different. Lighter. The coldness inside him was already beginning to melt. He was still smart, still capable. But he felt things again. Joy. Relief. Grief for Somin. Hope for the future. 6 months later, Earth held a ceremony at the archive. Representatives from across the galaxy attended. The Progenitor Heritage Trust continued its work, but now with limitations. Some knowledge would be shared. Some would remain locked. Humans had learned the difference between wisdom and power. Tai-hyun stood at a podium looking out at the crowd. Hijin stood nearby, her uniform replaced with civilian clothes. Ji-won had returned to research. Dong-yuk was training new security forces. Min-seo was building diplomatic relationships. They were all still here, still human, still themselves. The archive said, "Welcome home," when I entered, Taehyun began. I thought it meant we belonged here, that this place was our destiny. But I was wrong. Home is not a place we return to. Home is what we build for ourselves. The archive is not our home. Earth is, our families are, our friends are, each other. The progenitors left us their knowledge. They also left us a choice. They could have forced us to become them. Instead, they gave us the chance to be ourselves. That is their greatest gift. Not power, not immortality, but the freedom to choose our own future. We chose difficulty. We chose mortality. We chose to remain human. And I believe that choice makes us worthy of the inheritance. Not because we took the power, but because we had the wisdom to walk away from it. The crowd applauded. Even Counselor Velthar, who had watched humanity with suspicion for so long, made a gesture of respect. Sungo stood in the back, his eyes clear now, his skin normal. He looked older, tired but real. He nodded at Taehyun, a thanks that needed no words. That night the crew gathered on Earth for dinner. Just the 5 of them who survived it all. They talked about normal things. Weather, food, plans for tomorrow. They laughed. They cried a little when someone mentioned Soman. They were human in all the messy, imperfect ways that meant. As they left the restaurant, Taehyun looked up at the stars. The archive was out there, still waiting, still offering its knowledge to those wise enough to use it carefully, but it would never again try to transform humans into something else. That chapter was closed. Humanity had been given a key to the greatest library in the galaxy. They had walked through doors that no other species could open. They had been offered godhood itself, and they chose to remain human instead. Not because they were perfect, but because they understood that being yourself, flawed and mortal, was worth more than being a copy of someone else's perfection. The archive had said, "Welcome home," but humanity replied with something better. They said, "Thank you for the knowledge, but we have a home already, and it is enough."